Good afternoon. Welcome to the weekly livestock market update. I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Megan Grebner with us as always to talk all things markets. University of Missouri's livestock economist Scott Brown. Good afternoon, Scott.
Happy Friday, Megan.
Happy Friday. It's going to be a battle of rural broadband today and the lack of it. So we are both crossing ourselves to make sure we get through this. So we're going to talk a little cold storage. We're going to preview one of next week's reports, but to kick things off, let's recap what happened this week in the markets.
Yeah, on the cattle side this week, Megan, live cattle were about 50 cents lower on the week. Those feeder cattle auctions were anywhere from $2 to $5 lower this week. On the future side, on the cattle side, the February live cattle futures contract was up 75 cents, while the March feeder cattle contract closed down nearly $4. If we look at the corn side, March corn futures were actually up 18 and a quarter this week, I think leading to some of the weakness in feeder cattle futures that we saw. Now, the choice box beef price was really unchanged on the week. Moving to the hog side of the equation, cash hogs, $2.30 higher this week. The February lean hog futures contract was up $1.60. We also saw increases in the pork cutout value. It was up $3.75 on what was strength in loins, butts, and bellies. And the special I'll add is I believe the Chiefs beat the Bengals by at least 7 on Sunday.
That was probably last week's game was probably one of the best football games, NFL football games in history. And I have to say, my father-in-law was a huge Bengals fan, so it's a Houday house this weekend. So maybe we should have a little wager. We'll talk about it next. We'll talk about it next Friday.
Maybe we'll wait for the Super Bowl.
All right. So let's talk slaughter numbers as we take a look at those. We still aren't talking year-to-date numbers because that whole might be a little bit skewed and not exactly the kind of data we're looking at. But let's talk what has been happening this last week in slaughter.
Yeah, so USDA is estimating for the week ending January 29th, a run of 643,000 cattle. That's actually 7,000 above a week ago. But 13,000 below where we were a year ago. On the hog side, a run of 2.546 million head of hogs this week. That's actually up 106,000 from a week ago, but is 114,000 below where we were a year ago at this time.
Continuing to watch that as well. We're still seeing hog slaughter numbers running lower than where we were a year ago. Are we still watching that in relation to, I think about labor and slaughter capacity and what those plants are doing and what that means long-term for consumer demand and availability of product?
Yeah, so I think especially on the hog side, we need to watch, as we've gone through this week, we've seen a little downward revision from USDA in some of the early days this week of slaughter runs. To me, Omicron and some of the issues related with lack of labor still is a little bothersome on the hog side of the equation. And so we'll wait and see. I don't think we need to get back to the 114,000 more slaughter that we saw a year ago, just given where we are in terms of hog numbers. But again, we are seeing, I think, a labor issue there that is worth watching. And I keep saying, hopefully we've crested on those new cases of Omicron in many parts of the country, and that will help us from a slaughter perspective and get plants running closer to the capacity they'd like to be at.
The only report this week we're going to talk about cold storage numbers. As we take a look at that, I think the only thing that I am pulling from this is the fact that our freezer supplies are tight.
Yeah, so all good news, and for me continues just to remind us that the demand side of the equation, but both domestic and international, has been good and has kept supplies tight. When you see the numbers for December ending stocks of pork and beef, both of them are very supportive. On the pork side, we actually saw December ending stocks come in slightly below where we were in November of 2021. And so to me, that's supportive on the pork side. It's been awful tight on pork supplies, and this report does nothing to change that. On the beef side, we have seen growing supplies of beef ending stocks, but that's happening seasonally, so not out of the ordinary in terms of what we see there, but yet remains, Megan, 25 million pounds, below where we were a year ago. So all in all, good news, I think, from just how tight freezer stocks are.
All right. As we wrap up today, we're going to talk a little and preview a little bit next week's cattle inventory report, which comes out on Monday. We see this report twice a year, once in January, once in July, and it is time for the January report.
Yeah, that's right. So we will get this report next Monday. It's gonna set the stage, I think, for what we see later in 2022 and into 2023. We all seem to think that we're going to talk about a reduction in cattle numbers. You look at some of the pre-report numbers that are out there. The average guess of beef cow numbers would suggest a decline of 1.8%. Even the range shows declines at the upper end. So down the upper end of the range would be down 1.4. And so we all think there's less beef cows. And you and I have talked about this several times. More heifers being sent to the feedlot, increase in beef cow slaughter. Seems to me we have no way but to be lower in terms of beef cows. Total cattle and calves down 1.2% according to the pre-report estimates, and a calf crop that's going to be about 1% lower. To me, all of that spells some positive news still, as supplies of beef continue to shrink as we get further into 22 and into 2023. Let's hope that those pre-report estimates turn out to be true and we don't have a surprise next Monday and end up with more cows than we anticipated.
Kind of off of that, we keep talking about contraction or reduction. How concerned are we with the lack of snowpack or snow cover in parts of the Western Corn Belt? Do we set up a stage where we're really dry again to start the year and put us at a deficit, which could put even more pressure on cattle producers?
Yeah, so interesting you bring this up. Sometimes I have trouble with how much to talk about drought in the middle of winter, but I think it is worth a mention here. So, of course, the West has been dry, continues to be dry generally. Some of those areas that struggled in 2021 may struggle again in 2022. It's going to take a really good spring, and I remind us back in 2021, I'll take the Dakotas in particular, that drought happened early. And so we got really no grass growth. What kind of recovery can we get here in 2022? I'm not sure I know the answer to that yet. However, to the point you're making, it's starting to get dry in places like Texas and Oklahoma. If we have a drought in Texas in 2022, it just tightens those cattle supplies up even more longer term. I'm not always a big fan of getting higher prices because of less supplies. I'd much rather be growing demand and getting those higher prices. But we continue to show dryness in 2022, and I think it only gives us higher cattle prices as we look a couple of years down the road.
Scott, I think that does it for us this week. We mentioned the cattle inventory report coming out on Monday. What other reports are we looking for next Friday?
We'll also get a restaurant performance index next week, as well as USDA will give us a look at farm income, and we finish the week with a jobs report.
Sounds great. I will see you then. I'll be in Houston all next week for the National Cattlemen's Beef Association annual meeting. So there's going to be plenty for us to bring back to talk about from there as well. Scott, great to see you.
Likewise, Megan.
Hooday. Just kidding.
So much for our rural broadband, right?
We're trying. All right. Dover Weekly Livestock Market Update delivered to your email box every Saturday morning. Go to brownfieldagnews.com. You can also submit questions and comments there as well. And for all the great Brownfield podcasts while you're on the road or in the tractor, go to brownfieldagnews.com/podcast. Have a great weekend. I'm Megan Grabner for Brownfield.